Are we ready for this talk? Last time we went into an Archon scenario. We went on a quest for security. This time we go to the nautic experience as Laravel fleet commander. It's all under the motto, don't only ship code, code a ship. And because it's a project we're actually working on in our company, it's a glance into the galley. So come with me in our caboose. What are we doing and why we are doing it? So the menu of the privateer voyage is, first of all, of course, why do we need a ship? Why should we code something if we don't have a problem? And what problem, or if it is a problem indeed, we will see in the first part of this talk. Then we see how a ship can service our crew, our members, and then, because we're good privateers, how we can bootleg our services with the same ship for other customers. Everyone who gives us gold is welcome to use it. And then, of course, increase and maybe even share the loot we're gaining with this ship. So, first of all, we have a crew. The crew has needs, and we have to check what all of this is. So, first of all, we need to know who of our members has to scrub the decks. How many hours did our mateys toil? And we need a list of our patrons, how much treasure we have in the chest, how much can we spend for the next project, for the next treasure hunt. Then we need the control of the holidays. Of course, a real pirate has never holiday, but maybe a shore leave. So we must exactly know this day he's off or she wants a whole week of vacation and so on. And then how we do share word, because we're not alone on the oceans. There are other ships we have to communicate, and maybe somebody is freelancing for another crew, and then we need good parrots so we can communicate with each other or even place our files in this case. So we see here a little map, which is not really a map, but I put some icons there for the different continents or islands of services. I lied a little bit because those are not really microservices. Most of them are real platforms, and they have different meanings. So we have clouds, which do mostly the same thing, and all of that is in any way needed in our businesses. So we need the communication, some stuff to put our files on, or even for our developers, the most important stuff, to manage our code, share our code. Then we have customer relations. We need to have systems to make the relations clear, show them for our sales team, and Asana, Jira, and ClickUp, and the whole stuff is to organize our mateys' work. And of course, to know how many work they spend and how much doublons they earned this week, we need time tracking like Harvest or Timely or any system who does the job. But as a philosophical pirate, we maybe think that was not invented here. And that's not a title I invented. It's an actual, not a disease, more like a syndrome, which companies have. So they see a system, they try it out, they think, oh, it's glorious, they try it out further, and then they see it doesn't do it exactly the way we want to do it. And what's normally from the management the solution? Let's do it ourselves. And no worry, guys, we won't do it ourselves because there is a shitload to do if we want to code everything. It's absolutely reasonable if you say we do one part ourselves, like we have a dedicated time tracking with special needs, so we take this part and do our own thing. Mostly, I would say, based on my experience, it's not the problem that the platform does not have the features you really need. Maybe you should change your way of working a little bit, but that is here out of the discussion. We want just to use systems, but we have the problem that they have to communicate with each other. For that communication, I saw a lot that we have tools like Pipedream, Make, if this then that, Zapier. So I want to do my time tracking here, and with Pipedream, I have a fancy script on a hook, and this one then goes to another system, which is there tracked and so on. And of course, because we are developers and not some kind of noobs, we do that ourselves. So the whole automation is the basic topic of this talk, how we can do it and how we maybe see some solutions for that. What is the advantage of that? First, subscription fees. Mostly in the start, we take a free account of any of the systems and then do some nice automations. They work fine. And then we see, oh, only half of them went through because we have to upper our subscription and so on. We can control the quota. Let's say we work with two systems and one fires to an API of a third system and that system has a quota controlling. It's very tricky to realize something with that with Zapier because it's stateless. So they run through and they don't count how many times they run through. And even if they count it, it's very difficult to count it or to see or read the count of all the requests done. Then we want to have it a little bit centralized. So there is not a diaspora of different tools in action. And that's not something I invented. I just saw it on the company that the first person saw, oh, I can do an automatism with make. 2 years later, another automatism was needed. It was done with Zapier after that pipe dream. So we have script divided over the whole services. Nobody knows where is a subscription, where is a free subscription, how went the money, and it's all divided, which is not nice. Then we have a better scalability. If we need more power or more server, more RAM. And that specific tool I talk about is hosted on our nice sponsor of today, where we can, with Gelastic or any other container system, scale up as soon as we need more workers or more stuff to do. And that's very fancy. And of course, as pirates, we like the Horizon. And here it's literally because, of course, we use Laravel Horizon. Because we need a lot of jobs. We don't want to have that sequentially. We just fire up jobs, we monitor them, and we can manage that with Horizon. And of course, it's also near to the topic that we use a ship because we have sail with Laravel, which I think is awesome. In service of the crew. So now we have automatisms and our crew is happy. But how can we make them happy? And even how can we make the developers happy? For that, I want to show you some little snippets of code. As I said, it's a work in progress, but there are some things in action already, which I would like to present you. The first part of that, enter presentation. Is it readable? It is. So, as I already said, we work with Horizon, so everything starts with a job. So if we want to sync some stuff, it's just an example, it's not the main thing I want to show you. We fire this command, and the command, of course, fires up a job. The job is where I want to show you the beauty. The beauty builds all up on a talk Ruslan held several months ago from Saloon. Saloon is a nice wrapper to do API calls, and I really have to say it was one of the talks which helped me in my professional and also private life the most for wrapping calls in a beautiful manner. With this scheme we will see here, or this structure, it went even further because we see we here have a connector. The connector is the base, which holds the base URL and maybe some authentication mechanisms. And instead of firing a command, as we see in the first tutorials of Saloon, we see the connector directly goes to contacts, a get all, and we receive a DTO. Let's take a look in the Moco connector, or here in the contacts. First of all, this is the connector. It really looks like we would expect it. We have the resolve base URL, which delivers us with the main endpoint, where we afterwards set the topics to receive the data we want to. Then we also have a token authenticator that, of course, is based on the APIs we used. Some use tokens, some use different authentication methods, and so on. The headers, very basic. And here comes a little bit of the beauty I really liked. To be fully clear, you see there is a different name. This is my partner in code, the Mrs. Van Byte. And that's because we work together on this project, and a lot of the code I show you now was all written by her. So credit to her. I don't want to dress myself with a false crown. So we see here we have the different endpoints, and those are not the endpoints, those are like domains. And if we go deeper, if we see, we get a resource back, and if we go to the resource, we see different functions for the get all, we just saw in the other file, or we can say, I just want, come on, I'm a little bit handicapped with the touchpad, please excuse me. We can basically call every verb in code like we were directly on the API itself. The whole stuff then delivers a DTO, which is a standardized format that we can transfer to other services. So what? That was not what I wanted to make. That doesn't matter. And here in the end, we see in that domain, under that function with a clearly speaking name, we then finally call the finished endpoint. And there, of course, is some little error handling. The create DTO from response is indeed already from Saloon. So it's supported already in the base of that very shiny plugin or package. I, once again, really advise you to use. It makes your life easier. And that is the final version of it. And that all goes to an API, but it looks, if you take a glance at it from here, it really looks like you were working in your own code base without a huge list of, let's say the old HTTP GET wrapper we all loved or didn't. It's just a one-liner, and we have a complete record set in a standardized format we can afterwards use, and of course, if we want to, shoot to another system, as it is here the case. You see, Paxio is the one system, Moco is the other system, so we grab it from here and shoot it with our board cannons directly to the other platform. That is a pattern I wanted to show you, which really recommend taking a look in depth, because it looks just nice. And if you take a look deeper in here in the code base, you see our ship already has some integrations for all the different systems, and those who were written properly, meaning from Tanya, mine have to be rewritten to this pattern, they all have the shiny differentiated requests, and we also see here the data transfer objects where it is standardized by the API. The best part about that is if you have these DTOs and you have your finished commands, you don't even have to look in the API anymore, because you have everything integrated in your system, and your system explains the API exactly as documentation would, which I think is really, really nice and saves you time, because one of the biggest time factor you use in development is, of course, searching a documentation and reading the part you need to. Okay, that is one thing from the board cannons. We want to shoot at different APIs and get responses. And there is one other thing our automation system needs to cover, and that is also the reason for the name of this project. My project is not called a pirate dream, it's called the Jolly Roger. And that is because I really love very, very cheap puns. That is because this tool has two captain hooks. Okay. So, and now we go to the API. Because via the API, we can present endpoints. And here I wrote a little GitHub event handler. So I wait for the stuff the developers in our team do on GitHub. And as soon as in GitHub something happens, it fires to my ship, or to our ship. The vessel then does nothing other than to give it to the webhook controller. The controller is built very simple. It's just an invocable controller, so it does nothing else than directly put the stuff. Here, important, I wrote the comments, which I was very happy about because I did it a month ago and haven't time since to work a lot with it, but it explains it. We take the header and we take the action, which is important for the next step. Here we see some debugging on an improper level with Ray, but As I'm happy about Saloon, I'm even more happy about Ray. Thank you, Spotty, for making my life easier one step at a time. Then the next step is I have something here, GitHub hooks, which then tries to resolve the event, gets a job for the given action, and shoots that job. But what could GitHub hooks be? Ed would be very amazed by this because it's nothing other than a enum. The enum then covers the different cases which I already covered in my code. Here I have the simple matching algorithm to get the jobs. Because I'm lazy and I don't want to fantasize about what may be possible and what it's not, I already written down everything that GitHub offers in sense of events and commented it out here for me. There I know I want to implement that because a coworker wants to get a message if he's assigned to a pull request. I also want that in a channel appears a message if a pull request is closed, because it's always a nice time to celebrate. And I mean, we're in Switzerland. There is no better time than apéro time, and a closed pull request will sure be something like that. And here I have pull requests. Here I have the pull requests reviews. And you see my little shrug emoji. They would exist, but I don't know if I need them. But if I look into the code, I already know I could use them if I would be very eager to code some more stuff. So I resolve it here. And this is what I indeed get back from the other file we saw here. So I try first which enum hits, and then I get the job because of the action. So the event is like a level higher. That's the pull request, and the action is the actual verb. What happens with that? If you worked already with GitHub, you know that. And then I dispatch the job here, and the job I receive from here. The handle pull request, here I know then exactly what I will receive. Here I grab some secrets, which I will talk about a little bit later. And then I dispatch once again a new pull request, but in each folder, because it may be that I have different stuff to do with it and not just once. And here is some code to which I have to resolve for the other systems. And here I have an authorized call. In this case, it's to a Google chat, where I then inform the coworkers or the people who are in that project about the stuff that happens on GitHub. That makes the crew, in this case, happy that they can stay mostly on their main tool, so they can use GitHub. I have other scenarios where you see the Google chat, but there was also, you see here, React to ClickUp card. ClickUp is what we use to know who has what to do, so our track manager or planning system. And there I tried also to do an update of the task. So very similar if you were used to use Jira with Bitbucket, you can add in your commit message that it should automatically close an issue or reopen an issue. Those were keywords. And with this, with the system, I can very easily rebuild that. So I can now close a pull request on GitHub and then close it automatically in ClickUp. So the PM or the customer success person who wants to check it sees, oh, it's done. And the developer doesn't have to open another platform where you have to manage all this. I left that off. That run must be because I hated it. In ClickUp, there were some shiny stuff. Like when I posted in a link from GitHub with a pull request, a shiny widget appeared. So there was the state with a nice icon and all that. And then I was, oh, nice. That's because I want to do that. I want to have it visualized. If I grab the same issue from ClickUp, exactly that space is empty. It's nothing. If I create via API the description text with the same link I pasted in on the web browser, it just painted the link. There was no widget, and I was very sad, so I skipped that. Yeah, please click up, make that functional via API too. It sucks. So now we have seen we have a really nice method to do to do the requests per API. And if you were not convinced by the first one, this one is unstructured, and then it looks like that here. I have to make a request, then set the body, and then go to the connector, send the request. And that's basically the same thing that happened before we see in the nice variant over this one-liner. And I think we can all agree that this one way rules more than the other stuff. Okay, goody. What are the treasures for the crew? Basically, what I just show you. Skip the deck scrubbing. That is meaning pull the hard work aside. I just showed you some systems that interact with each other, but let's say we want to do a little bit more complex task, like we have in our time recording system or time tracking system, a project which we want to finish. With that, we can grab or we can enter the webhook. It communicates to our system. With our board cannons, then we shoot at the finance system, like Bexio, and automatically create a bill depending on all the times that were tracked on the system. So stuff that can be automated elsewhere maybe too, but are often done by hand in the early stages. And let's be honest, nobody wants to do such things by hand if they can be automated. Of course, never trust the system, not even such a shiny ship. Maybe you should check your billings before they go out. The automated parrot, that is mostly the communication stuff for the developer experience and the crew communications, because in a bigger crew, we have people that work in the caboose, we have people that work on the deck, we have people that work on the cannon. And all those have different preferences or favorites when it comes to platforms. So customer success person most probably would prefer to work on ClickUp or on Jira, on a system like that. But I don't want to go in this nerd stuff like GitHub. So we can sync our information that every person works on the system that he or she likes best. And of course, we have reusable cannons. So if we have the project I just showed you for one repository, I just have to do one. If I create a new project, I just enter one DB entry for a new project, and that is automated directly. I just have to create a space in my Google Chat app, and my ship does the rest because the webhook fires at the same endpoint, which then decides to which chat he has to shoot. Okay, bootleg under contract. Everybody needs automation. What I show you until now is just to make the life better for our company, to automate stuff and so on. But as I said, I work in an agency and we have a lot of clients, and you may be surprised, but seldomly they only use one single platform. I mean, most companies use multiple platforms for different cases, for different focuses, and they all need automations. Even if they just have a website and they want to connect their website to a CRM and maybe connect their CRM to a mail server and so on, they have from time to time special needs, because a lot of systems say, yeah, you can directly connect this system with the other system, but maybe data has to be transformed before going to the other system. Because when I say I want to point my GitHub webhook directly into Google Chat, that won't work because the data is not in the format Google Chat expects it to be to show us a message. And therefore, we need the transformer, and the customer will need them too. Or let's say they have different websites and they want to do additional segmentation for the contacts, which can't be realized for what reason ever in the form. So they can shoot to our ship. We can enrich the data or make the segmentation and then shoot it to the other system. And of course, if we have a shiny ship, why not add another ship and sell it to customers if it's floating in the beach anyway? But there I encountered some really gnarly stuff, the token hell. And what's meant with that? As developers, we know exactly never put credentials in any fashion in the code base, in the repository. So we use end files. End files are a shiny way to add everything we need in a file that is not committed but read by our application. But it's nice for the use case we have because we have mostly credentials for one system and they may add up. But if we have a nice service like an enrichment of data and we want to sell that for 50 customers or 100, our end file would look like this. And I think we can agree that would not be that shiny. In addition, that the end files are not in the repository, which is good for security, but shitty to work together with your coworkers. So we would have to exchange for testing or for whatever stuff the environment files all the time. So I thought along and I knew that there is an encryption cost in Laravel, which is shiny. So I thought maybe I just do one field which is encrypted and that is related to the customer and related to the service. Nice. And another but. There are systems that need more than one credentials. Let's say we have an auth-based or a token-based API. We need the token. Finished. Then comes the second system that needs a password and a username. That already doesn't work with the same mechanics because we have a to field. Then there is the chat from Google that needs the space ID, the token ID, and some other special thing I just forgot, but it's not important. So we have 3 informations, and we would have to make it very complex in a lot of tables, let's say more than 5, and I didn't like that. And then came the Laravel love, because what I didn't know until I scrapped the documentation was, if we go to the file we just see, the API from there, we will find it to the web controller. Then we go to a single pull request. And here we see it. Service secret is one single table. And if I go into models, there is encrypted JSON. I not can only encrypt a single string with Laravel, I can also encrypt a whole JSON structure. Of course, if you are like me, meaning old, you are really skeptical about structured data in a relational database. That seems like bad design, but thanks to Spati and thanks to Freek, he did it already in the language package they did long years ago. So we are completely fine with structured data into a MySQL database. And don't forget, it's not even scripted anymore because it's encrypted. So it's just a base 64 string, and we are happy with that. And we can now use our database to save the secret credentials all in one single table. We also see that there are different environments because they can have scopes. Like I said in Google Chat, we have the master credential, which is used for every space. And then we have the space credential, which just holds the endpoint, which is then the servant space or whatever. We can look at the service environments here. There is production, stage, and test. So that will not be what I meant. And here I just have the different services booked. So they all look the same, and we can search after that. And I somewhere have the master. The secret scope, of course, there is a scope as well. Where it is written is the master value or the project value. You see here, both is the scope value, but this one is for every chat because it's my endpoint. And this one is just for the different spaces I want to push my stuff in. So here I have the services also in an enum, and that is basically because that would be possible to do in a database table as well. I'm completely aware of that, but I have a little rule of thumb that if I have a constant or a config value, which is not hidden, of course, and that can change without changing the code base, put it into the database. If my tool runs along, there is nothing wrong to put it in the database. Here, I would have to write a specific integration for any other service I use. Therefore, I put it in my code because it's even more performant if I have stuff in my code because I don't have to do a query and so on. So that's the little differentiation I always make. If I have to change the code, in the code. If I don't have to change the code and my system is flexible enough to get it, put it in the database. Okay, what I want to show you now is, think if I talk here, it's a little bit harder to grasp, so I want to show you something from the Cedar. So it may appear a little bit clearer how the service secrets are built. So come on database, and there I have make for the presentation. So if I now have what I told you before, a new service, then I say here which settings GitHub should have. I make a service secret which has the service of Google Meet. The tenant is Neustadt, which is the name of my agency, and the environment is prod. That doesn't really matter in this case, but let's put it there. Then I put the main scope, so the master, and put the key in there. Afterwards, I know for this system and this tenant, the service secret for that will be found here under the scope of master. Then I have several different stuff. I don't use the scope here because the non-master is the default in my factory. So I just say I have a new project in GitHub. It has this ID. This is the label because that's what I want to show the users. And that is the path for a lot of things, or for creating links. It can afterwards be found on GitHub. Then I put a service secret for this given service or for this repo. So I create the space and the token. You see here are already two informations. Of course, the space we can discuss if that is really needed to be secret, but it belongs to the same service. So I put it in there and I can use it with one single request because it's already there. Then I save my repository and I use the secrets and add the secrets which are related to this repository and chat system. Here you see another one which works exactly the same. And remember, this one is not hard-coded. This one is just a Cedar. So you can imagine if I have a system and I would write a GUI or maybe a console command, I could easily, with this information entered, add a new repository, which then informs from that point on the Google chat spaces I want to have them in. Okay. What are the treasures for the gold givers? So we now know that we can save the secrets for a lot of services which can have another tenant than Neustadt. So if I switch the tenant, I know exactly that would be a client XY or customer CZ and so on. And they get a hand-tailored solution for themselves, which they are happy about because they couldn't do that with the standard endpoints which are present. And the functionality of that is even backed by a crew. Of course, this argument is totally exchangeable for every other discussion about why should we hire an agency and not try to let it do the needs of the boss or whatever if somebody is good in IT. But it's always good to have a proficient crew who manage your system integrations. Profit from others. What I just showed you was for ourselves. If we would have another company who used the same mechanics, we can reuse them. We just have to change the tenant and the code is written. That's basically the principle of open source. Of course, here it's closed sourced, but if we open the gates just to use the automations, they can profit from each other. And especially in Swiss, that can be a good thing because we have a lot of companies who use, let's say, Baxio for finance. We have a lot of companies who use Harvest for time tracking, a lot of companies who use HubSpot as a CRM, and so on. The costs are controllable. You could, of course, do that on AWS, but if somebody is on YouTube and saw the shitstorm about AWS and how can it escalate, we know exactly we have a limit, and the server, as I said, can be scaled by us, and we can monitor if something really went south and then shut that service down, but it doesn't get more expensive for the other customers. And sailing in Swiss seas, which is a little bit ironical because we neither have seas nor we have a long history of pirates. There was one German pirate, but a Störtebeker was beheaded. That's also why we talk in English here. We don't want some bad omens. But Swissness can also be a very important point. Of course, I know if we're talking about GitHub, if we're talking about HubSpot, and if we're talking about those international products, they don't care. The data will fly around the internet anyways. But if we use from one Swiss product to another Swiss product, we don't have to go over American servers or anything else. That can be, in some cases, indeed a good argument or a reason to use such a system and not something like Pipedream or any other international service. What do I have? Yeah, increase. What are the outlooks? The first thing is the mapping for customers, which I am still thinking about. We saw that secret mapping for services is very easy. But if we go back to the HubSpot or CRM topic in general, maybe, or let's say for sure, we would need to have a mapping for one user in that system to that user in another system, from that project in this system to that project in another system. That would be easily, that can be realized via relational databases. Maybe I'm a little in the maelstrom of this JSON stuff that I saw another solution for a given problem. So I'm still thinking about how can I do that more beautiful. Otherwise, let's go back to relational databases. They did a good job 20 years, so they will still suffice for this one. But if you have ideas, please come talk to me. Then I want to rewrite the whole stuff to DDD. In this case, it's of course DAC-driven development because we are on a ship. And there we have a lot of different DACs or domains. So we want to separate them a little bit, once for customer and once for services. How we want to do that, we will still discuss. But as you see, it's already growing and growing, and we mostly have our own stuff and some automations for customers. And if we will integrate more of them, we need a clear structure so everything is shiny. Then, Saloon, we could open the Saloon, first for beers, first for the better good of the world, because, as already said, we have a lot of companies who, let's say, use Harvest or Baxio. Baxio is very popular here. And if we see what's done here, let's say the get countries method. It's very simple, I know, but there will nothing change on any other system because the code you see here is basically the documentation of the API. It's just an implementation. So if somebody uses the same API and we already have the DTOs for that, it's like the Postman collection just in code for Laravel. That could be very useful to get fastly started and maybe build a little bit an easier life for all the others. Then I want to add I always plan a little bit with gamification. As I said, I work in the dev team and I want my dev to be even more motivated. So finishing a PR could give some score. Giving a feedback could give some score, make some labels, and maybe you already figured out that I'm a little bit a fantasy or stuff freak, so making a character card to get to the next level of your nerdiness could be awesome, and if there are freaks like me, which we have one or the other, they could be motivated by that. I myself surely would be. Then we have to handle the biggest danger of all, mutiny of crew members, seasickness, somebody falls out, or zombie pirates. So we have a ship, but something in the ship suddenly changes and all went south. And how we solve that, we will see later on with Sandra, who shows us mutation testing. Okay, thanks for your time and arrivederci. If you have any questions, I'll be there for you. That was a little showcase how we did things and how you could do them too.